So, do you want to go first, or?
Yeah. So I was gonna say the different topics that we find interesting.
Okay.
That's one thing where we can. This podcast will have so many ranges of topics because I have so many interests, and you have different interests.
I think we share interests, but you do have some eclectic. What would we call them? Eclectic. I mean, what's the kinks? Eclectic kinks.
Yes.
In terms of what you like to listen to versus what I would spend my time listening to.
Yes. So you're more of like NPR.
Oh, I don't listen to NPR
C-SPAN.
anymore.
Yes, you did.
No.
Market Watch.
Marketplace.
Whatever the hell. I like more of just people. I like more just people just talking from their own perspective in a less polished, produced way.
Mm-hmm.
I like that more. And
so I'd like to discuss why you like that more, but go ahead.
I don't know. I prefer it. And more off the cuff, more general just chatting instead of a more organized
Structured.
Yeah,
more structured format
where
because it doesn't feel real.
Basically you write it all out and you read your part of the script, they read their part of the script.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's just not my thing.
I think that's what that's what politicians do in hearings. Like they're each reading. It's either pro or against. Like if someone's being appointed and they have to go through the process of being vetted by Congress. There's stuff that happens before they get to the public hearing, but when they're in the public hearing, you have left and right either pillaring or admonishing them or singing their praises. And I mean that to me kind of seems like it's like wrestling to an extent. It's like staged, it's political theater. So I'm glad I think we agree we don't want that format to kind of take on this spot. We're just two regular guys.
Yeah.
We work for a living.
I just wanted to basically be like chatting about topics that we find interesting. And it could be stuff that's going on right now. It could be stuff that, like I just told you, I just watched some stuff about the Reformation. Like a history podcast. So that's totally off topic of whatever the hell's going on now.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting, so we could talk about that. But
we also talked about current events and like the crash that recently happened.
No, I'm saying I'm talking about all that stuff, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that we just find interesting. So anyway, philosophy podcasts, shows. What do you listen to?
Philosophy? I don't know that. I wouldn't say that hardcore history is really. It really I think it touches on philosophy, but it's not. That's not what it's about. It's about history.
Yeah, but I'm saying more of the philosophy. What do you listen to about that?
I mean, I don't really. I would say there's Audible books that I listen to. I've recently made some ground in meditations. Marcus Aurelius' meditations.
Okay. So for me, the ones right now that I listen to a lot are the Nietzsche podcast, and I listen to the Daily Stoic, and I like Entitled Opinions.
Jeez, that's a lot.
Yeah, so those are really good podcasts that I listen to often that have to do with philosophy. And so other things that interest me as far as topic that I wonder that you're not really interested. Oh, well, I do like are you interested in any of the drama stuff?
Well, it depends. What are you talking about?
Just people bickering on the internet. it's inconsequential. It doesn't matter, but it's just like, Twitch people scamming their audience, YouTube people scamming their audience, one person calling another person out so they fight over stuff. Doesn't it ever interest you?
I mean,
as a show.
I mean,
I don't participate. I'm not active in any of the communities.
I get it. You're just
but from
observing.
a distance, I can, enjoy people punching each other.
Yeah, you're in the audience. Yeah, I mean, I think for you, the enjoyment would be similar to like a Roman being in the Colosseum watching two gladiators kill themselves or fight to the death. It's not, you don't want to be down there, but you can enjoy the fact that one of them's going to die. I mean, I think that's your version of living in the information technology era. You're the Roman in the Colosseum, and you're just curious to see who dies. So I can understand it. I don't. Through you, I can appreciate it.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna go like out of my way to listen to it. It just won't. It's not a form of entertainment that I seek out.
I like it. It's obviously a spectacle, right?
Yeah.
But I also like the psychology of it. The madness of crowds. I'm gonna protect my team to the bitter end, even when we're wrong. It's the pettiness. It's something that doesn't really matter, but they fight to the death over it.
So you just touched
stuff like that.
You touched on something that it does interest me, which is your insight into political influencers or political podcasters or streamers who have a position in defense of one group or the other. That does interest me. That gives me insight into how the people who are not at the top think. It gives us insight into the people who support the people at the top think. And that's fascinating and also a little bit scary because you just see how far. So I will say this, and then you can continue. You see how much of a divide. There's a huge gulf between both groups. And I think this kind of ties into what we have, I think, agreed, or at least I certainly believe, which is why the middle matters more than either the left or the right. But the middle has, in terms of an outsized influence, like virtually none beyond presidential elections.
What about the drama of like certain topics? Like, I like looking at people fighting over like AI. There's a game called is it My Side? Oh god damn it. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called My Side or whatever. But anyway,
it seems like just the name, it kind of implies that there's some tribalism at play with the game that's been developed. And honestly, given the times, is it that surprising that there's like these echo chambers, these specific echo chambers that exist in these disparate groups? I'm not surprised.
No, this is completely...
Because you can subscribe now to your favorite writer of a particular magazine or a news outlet, and so people are getting further entrenched into their political beliefs.
It's completely different than what you're thinking what it would be. But My Side is like a Russian-made anime game, okay? Where you basically play I haven't played it, but I watched you play it. You play a character, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to be in a game so that he can date the girl in the game, right? But he's actually on a cartridge, and the girl actually has him in a machine she's playing. Anyway, it's a mind twist and anything.
Yeah,
but
it definitely
the
feels
thing
like a mind
I
fuck.
thought about it is that, those things where I think like, VR, this stuff's gonna happen. People already marry like anime characters, right? So
People marry anime characters?
yeah, that's happened in Japan already. People have married anime characters. Now listen, you just fast forward that.
It's not happening in large quantities.
The trend will be higher.
No, these are early adopters that I think, just like there's people in Japan who dress up as like a dog and live their life as a dog.
Yeah, that's not gonna catch on, but this will, and this is what I'll see is
that's why
I like
the
the fighting over it, right? So you have people who say like, this is disgusting. Go out there and get yourself a real girlfriend. This is this is pathetic. This is wrong. This is blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And then you have people on the other side who are like, I mean, you gotta be brave. I mean, I saw a show where a guy has a bunch of girlfriend dolls in his house. And he's being interviewed about how happy he is with his doll.
That's just for the clicks, it feels like.
No. But it's always possible. I don't know the dude, but I'm saying that's where the trend's going. And I like watching the back and forth between them. As the tech is improving, right? There's going to be more people who adopt this software.
Okay, let me pause you for a second
What?
and say, I get where you're going. It's just, I struggle to see the trend heading in that direction. I think in your dystopian mind, you think this is where technology and society is going.
Why wouldn't it?
Well, I'll give you an example
Okay.
of one that has. So the evolution of the porn industry.
Yeah.
We started out back in like the 60s and 70s with strong social and moral taboos in America regarding pornography. It was very conservative society. That was stuff that happened between a man and a woman, and only a man and a woman, behind closed doors or in the sanctity of their home or in the sanctity of their marriage. Well, you fast forward like, a couple decades later, you find out, well, there's men who, they were doing that stuff at home in alignment with their family values, but they needed to have something on the side.
Yeah.
They needed to have, in some cases, I've read instances of men having multiple families in multiple different states because their job afforded them the opportunity and the income to do it. Now, this was, decades ago, probably 3 decades ago, definitely over a quarter century ago, but even within the past couple of decades, people were doing that. Okay, so back to pornography. So, very taboo to even the idea that Judeo-Christian citizens of this country would engage in the spectacle of
They wouldn't.
oogling,
No, they wouldn't.
women topless
That's you heathens.
and
that do
bottomless.
that. Ugh, disgusting.
I mean, it caused a furor in the country. It to the point where there were states, and I think in some cases, perhaps federal, but there were states that were suing these companies to stop them from producing this content. And there was a legal tug of war, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that this is free speech, and that this is a business's product, but it's also their free speech. And you have the choice as an American to look at it or not. And so that ruling, it propelled businesses to expand, the porn industry to expand, to the point where today there's, what do we call them, casters, or, like on OnlyFans, they're called like...
Influencers?
No, they're not influencers. This is like sex work, but cam girls. Cam girls is what they're called. So, to the point where cam girls are making an entire income off of this because people are paying them, and they can have virtual sex with these people. So there's a device on both ends in front of the users that they can engage with.
Yep.
To simulate sexual intercourse.
Teleorgasms. But that's not the angle I'm looking at it. This is how I see it in my mind. Is that as we become more fragmented and online, right? Then, but you still have basic animal needs. Then basically, the market is gonna make solutions to that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what this example is. It's an example that I think is more realistic because it's already happening, and it's too expensive, right? But I think as more people start to buy into this idea, there's going to be more devices that are purchased for virtual sex. There's going to be more sex dolls that are purchased for virtual sex, or for physical sex.
Don't you think? I'm saying there won't even be people on the other end. It will be an AI bot. Either you designed yourself,
but if we could
or
get
like pre-packaged DLC packs.
But why do that if you could have like a Megan Fox bot? If you could,
I feel like that's gonna come way later.
I mean, but if you could have that
like moves around and stuff, or you mean
Yeah.
just one that's just stiff and it just sits on the couch?
There's a recent movie that came out. It's on Netflix. It's with Megan Fox. I forget what it's called, but it's basically she's a model of AI robot. It's supposed to just be a nanny, and one of the interesting pieces of the movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it. Just look up Megan Fox Netflix movie where she's a AI robot. One of the most interesting pieces of the movie is that she's fully functional anatomically. So there's this part in the movie where she can sense that her master or her owner is sad, and so she has been programmed to make him feel good.
Okay.
So she propositions him.
This part of the software?
Yeah.
Man.
I'm surprised you haven't. Honestly, I'm surprised.
I've never heard
this
of this
movie hasn't even.
I'm not really
become more
interested in
popular.
Megan Fox. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, look. I mean,
this is recently.
Yeah, it came out like the past 6 months.
Okay.
But I mean, neither.
look it up.
I'm not really like. I think we can agree. Like, I'm not really interested in Megan Fox either, as like a conquest or like a long-term relationship. But I think we can agree she's an attractive woman.
Yeah.
And whether or not we find her attractive is irrelevant. A wide swath of the population does. And if we just look at her Instagram account followers as an indicator, that
Is it
total
high?
number, it's really high. It's
Okay.
double digits in the millions. Tens of millions.
Okay. I don't know.
But if we look at that, and then we can kind of carve out, let's say there's like over 20 million people follow her. Of that 20 million, perhaps half of them are men. Why are they
It's
following
gotta be
her?
more than that.
I agree, but
Okay.
let's say that half of them are men. Now, how many of them are following her because they like the movies that she puts out, and they like her as an actress? Exactly. It's absurd. If a man is following this woman,
1-2%.
yeah, maybe not even that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but most dudes who are following her, they're not following her because of the lingerie that she models or the clothes that she models. They're following her because they think she's fucking hot. And let's be very conservative. Of that 10 million, let's say 5 million. I don't think that's the right number, but let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say 5 million of them are following her because they think she's hot. That's still 5 million men who follow her because they think she's attractive. And you're telling me 5 million wouldn't, that number, 5 million, even if it's less, you're telling me that 5 million wouldn't be a target market for some robotics company to build an AI nanny or an AI girlfriend robot?
That's coming.
That's 5 million people, and you could sell it for like tens of thousands of dollars.
I agree 100% that there will be deals that are struck up between music stars, movie stars, TV stars to purchase their likeness in order to make a robot that is sold as a sex toy.
So
people.
that's already
and it will make billions and billions and billions of dollars.
That's happening right now in the porn industry. It's been happening for decades. They sell molds, especially the porn actresses. They sell molds of their anatomy downstairs, and they
genius. I didn't think about
and
that.
they
That's
end up and they
genius.
sell it to people who watch their content, so they get to interact with one of their favorite porn stars.
Genius.
It's
I
been
was
happening
always
for a
thinking
long
about
time.
it. Like you're saying, like, cam girl stuff, but I was thinking more of the move will be, in my opinion, that you will have, you'll come home. You'll have a VR girl on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And she'll be, you know how it's built. It's built to basically learn you and then to repeat what you like back to you. And that way, oh my gosh, we like the same things. We're so similar. Well, yeah, it's programmed to basically copy you in a way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're gonna like them a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you go home, they'll be living on your phone. They'll be living in your Google glasses whenever they come out.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be in your VR headset. They'll be jumping around in your TV while you're watching shows.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be this character that's around you all the time.
I think that's it's going to be an iterative step. That's something that could eventually lead to what I was referring to with the AI nanny. You have to start somewhere. And what ends up happening is like the culmination of all of these projects taken together, they're put into this one product, right? Right now they exist as separate products.
Yeah.
I think we've seen that before play out with like, so all the capabilities that existed on a PC,
or on your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what. So they're now on your phone. You can do all this stuff on your phone.
All of it pre-existed on your computer, and your phone was just a phone. Now your phone has all the stuff that your computer had.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
that took over that's like a 10-year period or so.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I remember that there was an application development was a field of IT that started to take off. I think when the iPhone came out, but when smartphones became smarter, and you could the technology the silicone that goes into it could be miniaturized. And then that's when people just kind of put together, well, why would I have a computer and a phone why not just put everything in my phone?
Well, they put a lot of the functionality, right? So I don't have to go to my computer to get directions, to get the web.
A lot of that's being phased out.
To search the web.
I mean, for security purposes now, in certain instances, you still need to use another device to authenticate yourself.
Well, yeah, that's different.
But I think that's being phased out. So
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think more and more what I run into is people they say that they can use their phone to do everything, but organizations, for security purposes, they want you to log in through another device.
Yeah, two-factor authentication. Yeah. That's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to do with the functionality of the phone. That's just trying to make sure that there's a higher chance that you're the one logging in. You're the person who has the account and you're the one logging into it.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be going away. And so what I'm saying...
Why?
Well, because people like convenience, right? Why do it on both when you should just be able to do it on one?
I think it didn't exist for a long time because of convenience.
Right. It didn't exist.
But then hacking... Like, I remember when World of Warcraft introduced two-factor login because so many accounts were being stolen.
That's hilarious.
So it's something that didn't exist for a long time, but they integrated it because of all the theft that goes on. And you think that's going to get worse? I think it's going to get worse.
I think there's ways you can create. So recently, there's been iterations of security on phones involving like password keys, or device keys. I mean, I think so. I don't know what people's attitudes are with that. Personally, I don't like it, but you can't. There's only so much you can do. So there's other security features that can be embedded into the device to authenticate you, and eventually, you're not going to need another device. So all I'm saying is like Subservience is the name of the movie that Megan Fox is in. It's a really good movie. And I didn't watch it because she was in it, but the idea kind of got to me, and it stuck out.
Oh, the idea sounds good. Like, it sounds like something I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I'll have to see.
I think you would like it.
I think something similar could, like a similar type of thing. It's not gonna be exactly that, but you know.
No. But it's, to me, the movie is kind of the end state, right? It's decades and decades of research involving AI. So yes, we can probably get like an AI assistant on our phone. We've also already seen instances of that, with the recent iPhone. It's called, I forget what it's called, but it basically there's an assistant in it, and it can do when commanded, it can do things like write an email, proofread your email. I've seen commercials for it. It's kind of novel. I mean, that's a use case for it, which is good. But now you take all those individual uses, you put it into one, and I think, the example, the finished product is likely going to be something like, an AI girlfriend. So just going back to what you were saying about, the trend, I don't think the trend is going to be.
I got another thing.
Go ahead.
Games like Genshin Impact, where they're free to play, but they have like a gambling system worked into it, so that you have a chance to get a skin, a chance to get a outfit, a chance to get a weapon, and basically you buy chips, and then once you buy the chips, it lets you roll, and you have a % chance. So you're just buying chips so you can keep trying to get this item, right? And they make billions off of that. Now, peer into the future. Same thing.
Yeah.
But AI girlfriends.
Dude, I mean, I agree with you. I think that.
Come on. You think it's gonna dominate everything?
I think that's what we're seeing right now are the initial iterative steps that when you combine them either into a phone or some other product, I think that's where it ends. And then the next phase is like, well, what's after that? But we're not there yet. But as a futurist, I do think it's interesting to consider these topics because it also depends on the industry. I've seen instances where AI robots are useful for warehouse management. So there's a growing industry where smart warehouses are becoming a thing. And in these smart warehouses, everything is automated. Everything has a specific place. It's down to the millimeter where crates are placed and stacked, and how they're stacked and how they move. And there's a ton of IoT devices to monitor the movement, maintain performance and productivity, but they're using robotic labor, AI labor.
I've seen it was a while ago now, but I saw somebody doing like a mini documentary or something like that about Amazon moving into that, to where like I think they had like a giant warehouse and like half of it was computer and half of it was human.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of the name now, but yeah, there is a company in Germany, and they're testing this, and it's appealing to someone like Amazon. I mean, Amazon, they have all people. These people, they want to unionize. How dare they? And they're all about improving productivity, improving efficiency, and I think I get it from the business perspective. It makes sense because I mean, look, Amazon started out as a company that promised next day delivery. I don't know about you, but when's the last time you got next day delivery?
It's an aspiration, like Elon talks about.
No.
It's aspirational.
No. This is guaranteed.
You're taking things way too literally.
This was something that they promised. It was part of their product offering. Now they've slowly moved away from that because they realized, well, they can't do it. And why? Because people's lives, I guess, start to be affected. People just can't work that way. The supply chain, it has holes. Now, but it does beg the question: even if you would smart warehouses help or hurt?
Well, in my opinion, they're eventually going to hurt
the productivity. Well, it's going to hurt someone, but I'm saying.
Well, I mean, it's going to hurt jobs.
In terms
is it going to help us get our products faster? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's say if the goal was for next day delivery or same day delivery doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But if the goal was same day delivery, you hit a button on your phone to purchase, you get it a couple hours later. Now that is something that I think they would push towards. Well, but does it help? is the question.
The only way they can do that is you'd have to have a distribution of warehouses very close to every town, city, like strategically located, so that they can get to people fast enough. And like you said, they'd have to automate a lot of it so that there's no downtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is smoothly transitioning from trucks to their exact spot. When you buy it, the robot knows exactly where to go to grab it. I'm sure it has to be like packaging technology so they can package it super fast.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things would have to cut down the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Business leaders they go into this thinking that technology is going to solve all their problems. I think
it's going to solve a lot of them.
No, I don't. I think it causes more problems than people are willing to accept. But they like it because it gives them something to kind of work towards. And I think the examples I've seen of smart warehousing are interesting. But I also think it has the potential to cause more problems. Imagine like you have a smart warehouse. So there's a lot of integrated devices, right? Internet of Thing devices, physical devices, and they're all integrated. They're connected together. Well, imagine if what happened with like Colonial Pipeline or the telecom hack happened to a warehouse. I mean, but not just one, but multiple at the same time.
That's for everything as it gets digitized. Everything as it becomes online and automated. Now you're open to somebody gumming up the works with malicious software.
But let's say your AI robots are removing packages, they stop working. So what do? Do you get more AI robots? But what if they're compromised as well? So
it'll be like it's been going on. It'll be ransom. They will say, we will give you access to your robots for $1 billion. And every day you don't do it, you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars from the inactivity, right? So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be extortion.
Right, but my point is, as a business, that's unacceptable. You can't accept downtime. So you need to be resilient.
Yeah, but as you know, they don't want to pay for security.
Yeah, but this is my point, right? So this is what leaders, they move in this direction of automation. They move in this direction of increasing efficiency and productivity. But really all they're doing is positioning themselves for greater disruption later on. And there's eventually, the pendulum swings towards technology in periods of time, but it inevitably swings back towards manual labor because manual labor, it's dependable. It may have its issues, but you tell somebody can move something from point A to point B and not break down. If they're an able-bodied man or woman and you're telling them to move items from point A to point B, okay, they can do that, or you can find somebody else who can do it for them. But a robot needs maintenance, needs regular software updates, the parts that exist in it. You need to have a robotic specialist who specializes in troubleshooting and maintaining this fleet now of AI robots who are in a warehouse. And not just robots, but forklifts. Forklifts could be automated.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it just needs the tech, but these things break down. And it only takes one incident for everything to break down, because once everything gets integrated, you just need to apply a disruptive element. Everything
like a
breaks
conveyor
down.
belt, you shut it down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
the
now,
robots
the items aren't moving, the
still,
boxes aren't moving, but the robot's just sitting there waiting.
Or
nothing's happening.
Or it's going through the motions. It's just continuously moving because
nothing's there.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you could break one piece and it breaks the whole thing.
That's all you need to do.
But
so
this. Let's close it off. What do you want to say?
Oh, close on. I mean, I think just to put the cap on this topic, I think that AI has some incredible uses, but I think in general, we need to talk about how those utilizations can exist in the real world.
So what you're saying is the Megan Fox robot facility, one thing can get broken, no, people aren't getting the robots anymore, men riot.
Oh yeah.
There
I think
go.
men are going to want their
see
Megan
exactly
Fox
what you're
robots. They, if nothing else that we talked about during this session is possible, I think that men, if there existed Megan Fox sex bots, now I think this is the dystopian future that you should really be focusing on, because you do not take a man's woman, real or bot, away from him and expect him to accept that. That's not going to happen. So I think that is more realistic, because there will be a dedicated, hardcore consumer base who will demand their Megan Fox sex bot.
Wow, powerful. And I think that closes off this section with that hopeful future. Right.
Yeah, so dangerous topics. I've seen this happen where podcasters, they say something, it's taken the wrong way by a certain group of people and magnified with that incorrect interpretation of the thing that was said, and they become demonetized, deplatformed, and if you depend on this as a source of income to provide for yourself and your family, which some people do, then it has a negative monetary effect on them. Now, not everybody does that. Some people do, I would say, deserve to be deplatformed. I think it just depends on the person and the things that they're saying. So a dangerous topic item could be like talking about the Israeli conflict in the context of supporting one group or the other, right? Obviously, there's strong emotions about this particular conflict from both sides, but how do we navigate that? I don't know how to do that, and I don't know how to talk about it. And I think that when it comes to one group, and this is how people look at this, it's either through the lens of if you're an individual who supports Israel, you see the supporters of Gazans as supporting terrorists. But if you're looking at this conflict through the lens of Gazans, you see Hamas as a freedom fighter organization standing up to tyranny and a group of colonizers, and you see Israel as the aggressor. So is this topic, I guess, so I'll frame this in a question. Is it worth talking about this, and can we do it perhaps in a way that avoids all those negative consequences, or should we do it?
We should talk about it. The only restrictions I put on myself is not getting deplatformed. But you are going to make people mad. There's no way around it. And because of the degenerate views of our culture this time, they want to not merely disagree with you, but destroy you. And so that's guaranteed to happen. But as long as you can do it in a way where the platforms don't also kick you off.
So, okay, now here's something that I've been considering recently since there's been a change in administration, is does the timing of the things you're saying, does the timing of the things you want to say that are going to offend people matter in relation to who occupies the White House?
Well, absolutely. The thing is the reason we have to be anonymous is because, let's say even if it's 20 years from now, someone can come into power, deep search what you said a long time ago, and then cancel you then.
Yeah. Okay. So now you just walked into my second topic, but these are like blended topics, right? Podcast security. So the reason why I think we've decided that we want to remain anonymous is that we don't want to have to be looking over our shoulder, so to speak. I mean, there's lots of examples that we can point to in the past where, for instance, there were Supreme Court justices. I mean, Brett Kavanaugh is one that comes to mind, whom was vilified during his confirmation hearing for something that he may have done or allegedly happened when he was like a teenager. I think it had something to do with like blackface and perhaps assault. But I mean, the it's like that, dredging that up out of somebody's head. I mean, how it's absurd. The absurdity, let's say those things were true. Well, is it horrible? Yeah, of course. We're not co-signing that behavior and encouraging people to do these things. I want that to be clear. We're not. However, is history only relevant when people want to use it against you, or can it just be like a learning experience? And it's and there's also questions regarding like the allegations in general against, if I'll keep with Brett Kavanaugh as an example. I mean, what some people may say is assault, that it was consensual. What some people could say is racist could arguably be seen as socially acceptable, especially if there were black people at that party who knew him and knew he wasn't racist, and it was just a party and nobody took offense to it. So if the people around you aren't offended by the thing that's being done, or there's a misunderstanding, but other people are taking those events out of context and using it against you to pillory you, I mean, how do you deal with that? Well, I think the way you deal with that is what we're doing, right? We're saying, well, to secure ourselves and ensure that our futures are not negatively impacted by doing something we enjoy doing, which is just talking freely, we opted to go with an anonymous format. So we will refer to ourselves by a letter, D and Z, and I guess that's what we're choosing to do. There's not going to be video. We're going to talk about these topics, and perhaps one day we can publicly out ourselves and choose to have live recordings or just recordings with video. But I mean, I think we both agree that socially, in our societally, it's not a good idea to be so public, to be a public figure, when people there's numerous instances of people attempting to deplatform you, demonetize you, attack you, your integrity as an American, your patriotism, and not just by foreign actors, but domestic actors, people who live in this country who feel it's necessary to go after anybody who says anything that offends them. And maybe not anything or anybody, but specific things that are said, even if context isn't important. And I think that's the big thing, is that context doesn't matter to certain people. I mean, it should matter. It should be the thing that matters. But because we are in a society, in a moment of society where the context does not matter, the details of a thing that's said don't matter, we have to kind of protect ourselves.
Yeah. We don't live in the 90s anymore.
No, we sure don't.
We can't speak our minds freely.
It's a lot different now than it was back then. I think the generations that exist today, especially the younger generation, teenagers, early 20s, mid 20s, they are very sensitive. I think they take their ability to engage in free speech, their right to engage in free speech, for granted. So I guess just going back to the topic again, or the point of podcast security, I think we need to be conscientious about the things that we're saying and how we're saying it. It's more like a walled garden. You know, it exists, but it's going to exist in a common place where people will see it, but they're not going to know what's going on behind it, and why would they care? So we kind of exist in plain sight. So we have to, I feel like we have to take certain precautions. We don't have to be extreme, but certain precautions need to be taken.
I watch a lot of YouTube drama. Dude, you can't really talk to anybody about anything personal. Because if all it takes is one person, one mod,
Really all it takes?
one super fan that gets mad over a topic could come up. Like you were saying, Israel-Gaza. You had the opposite position. Now suddenly, now you must go down.
Yeah.
And everything that was said in confidence, there you go.
So I had to learn this the hard way, but the things you say to people who are not close friends or family, or considered family if they're close friends, if not family by blood, they can always be used against you later. I really had to learn this lesson.
I'm just saying, especially
the
online
hard way.
people.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, pieces of information individually are useless. Correlated across multiple pieces of information start to paint a picture.
Oh yeah, that's what we've learned from like NSA and everything. They say the metadata that they collect on everybody is way more important than even recording a phone call.
Yeah.
They can know way more about you from your metadata than anything else.
The greatest skill you can develop, or that you would want your kids to have, that will stand the test of time, is storytelling. The ability to craft a narrative and then convince people, get people engaged in your narrative and think, oh, your company makes sense. You're not going to come in and say, I'm starting a software company. You're going to say, this is the technology, this is the marketplace, this is why society needs this, these are our unique skill set, and you can craft it into a story that is compelling, right? It's the key to scoring above your weight class romantically, right? Communicating a plan, communicating kindness, communicating empathy, communicating humor, right? Any industry, Jeff Bezos' 1997 shareholder letter, you read that letter, you just want to buy stock. I don't care how overvalued it is. When you listen to Jensen Huang talk about the future of AI and biology and healthcare, you're like, well, maybe I should buy it even though it's trading at 110 times earnings. If you want to be a great CEO, you got to be a great, I don't care if you're Maya Angelou, Rishi Sunak, or Jensen Huang. The core competence of any really successful person, or the core competence that's going to get you real influence and economic security, is storytelling.
Thank you, Scott Galloway. What'd you think?
I mean, the last part he said about storytelling, I think that's very true. In any business, you have to know how to communicate. Communication is very important, but you have to know your audience. And if you want to start a business, you definitely have to bring both of those skills together in order to be successful. If we look at examples that exist today, I think there's a story that has been told. So I'm thinking of Elon, right? He told
That's
a story.
what I was gonna say. Yeah.
He told a story early on. He set his vision. He brought in early buyers or early adopters, which expanded to the early majority. So he penetrated a market share that had been predominantly controlled and managed by and large for decades by old legacy auto. Now,
And he knew his audience. He was talking to California rich tech people who were concerned
about
with
the environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he knew how to craft a story, and he knew what kind of story to craft for these specific people.
So I mean, yes, he did kind of two things. He told a story and he packaged the story as part of the sales pitch. Now that was before. This is now. Today, I feel like he's just a salesman because the story has been told and he basically just repeats those lines. If we're just staying with Elon, the sales piece, it's continuing. The story is not really told as much anymore, but maybe he doesn't need to say it anymore. Maybe he just needs to be a salesman. And I mean, he can do that because basically what he's doing is he's not He doesn't. He all he's doing is selling the idea now,
Yeah.
and perhaps selling the benefit. But I don't think it's actually working out for him. Another point that came up in that clip was, does somebody need to be a great salesperson to start a business? I think, yes, early on, I think they do. They need to have the ability, the recognition that they need to have the skills and bring them to bear when needed. You don't want to constantly be selling, because that shit gets old. But you do need to know how to apply your product to particular instances. And this is also something Elon does. So when the war in Ukraine broke out, Ukraine was suffering from attacks on their infrastructure, their energy, their telecom, their banking. All their infrastructure was under attack, whether it be by cyber or missile or physical attack. So the military was struggling to maintain battlefield communications. So what did they do? Well, Elon said, well, I have a solution for you. I have this little Starlink product that will give you satellite connectivity for Terra Nova. But you don't need Terra Nova, you just need this particular part of the world. And came in when their telecoms went down. He came in and provided that solution. He sold them the solution. He sold them on the product. The product sold itself, though. It was a service that they needed immediately, probably like yesterday immediately, and it provided critical battlefield communication they were willing to pay to get. So I think striking while the iron is hot makes a big difference. I think those examples will seldom come up
I thought it's information of
as often,
which I try to. If you'll ask me, it's more of if you want, like he's saying, should I be an entrepreneur or join Google? He's like, what are you, an idiot? Join Google.
Yeah,
you're gonna get the connections, the money, the just the culture is gonna get into you. If you want to start a company, it would be later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I think that makes
to me, he's
sense.
talking to students. So he's saying, hey, they're saying, basically coming to him probably is saying like, hey, it's my last year.
Yeah.
Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
So you're talking about a young person going out into the world. What's the best information for them?
Yeah, take the Google. Yeah. I mean, there's a benefit to having the golden handcuffs. I think that, to me, that's a no-brainer. If you are able to establish yourself in a company like Google and you have golden handcuffs, well, I think congratulations, you won the lottery. But also, the handcuffs piece of that statement is a state of mind. How badly do you want to start your own business? Only the individual can answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
And then the handcuffs, can be removed. Now, that doesn't mean you have to leave your cushy job. It means that you work on this on the side. An example would be the creators of Wikipedia. These were professors and data scientists who they went into this endeavor with the thinking of they want to provide an internet library to the world that could have a net positive impact on societies across the world. And it's basically just a reference point. And they were working on this in addition to their professorial duties. So they were building out the architecture for Wikipedia while they were working as professors, but maybe on the weekend. And one thing that they said that has always stuck with me is, if you want to change the world, you can't do it during your regular job. You have to put in time outside of your regular job to create these products that may have an impact on the world.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way of, it's too risky to quit your job, go all into something, and then find out that nobody wants it.
Yeah.
You want to find out if somebody wants it on your off time first.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
That's the best way to do it.
Then, if there's a huge market for it, or enough to sustain you, and you're tired of your job, then that you consider it, right?
Yeah.
But to just say like, no, I know I'm right, and go all in on something.
That's the height of hubris, I think.
Yeah, and then find out like, ooh.
You could be right.
You could be right, but wrong time.
Yes, timing has a lot to do with this. Let's go back to the Elon and Starlink example. So, before the conflict in Ukraine kicked off, SpaceX its primary product was rocket ships, right? Taxiing satellites for private sector companies and public space companies into low Earth orbit, or sending supplies to the ISS, right? That was what they were doing at first. Now they had this other product. I remember reading articles about this because I think Glenn Shotwell is the CEO of SpaceX. She was running into issues with new hires pushing this new product, which was Starlink, which became Starlink. And what they were running into was there was culture issues between these individuals who worked at company X and when they came over to SpaceX. So Elon had to get involved. And what he was being told is that it can't be done. Well, he didn't believe that, and he was right, it could be done in this instance. But they wanted to push this product specifically so that they could address a service gap in the interior of the country, where ISPs, telecoms, it's not advantageous for them to drop lines in these rural parts of the country. And even if they did, the service would be spotty anyways. So that's what Starlink was initially targeting demographic-wise. Rural parts of the country, farmers, ranchers who needed access to the internet, but they lived in remote areas. So the timing piece of this with the war in the Ukraine was very advantageous for Musk. So he saw a need, he stepped in and provided that service. And by the way, this is kind of the genius of the sale. This is where you've reached a certain height of salesmanship where you can see both sides of the coin. So what did he provided that service to the Ukrainians, but then Russians were getting mad at him because they're saying, hey, why are you providing this service to them? And then Elon says, well, we can sell it to you too. So, I mean, you want to talk about war profiteering and being able to do it from both sides. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that in my mind. Usually you have a product that, like military weapons and military material, that you're selling only to one group. But if you can sell it to both groups, I think that's very advantageous from a business perspective. Now, I don't know whether that's happened or not, but maybe it's irrelevant.
To me, it's just a marketing play. He's a
salesman,
yeah.
Right? He's selling a product to people where its demand is highest.
At the time, especially at the very beginning of the Ukraine war, there was so many people talking about it all day, every day. Everybody changed their name so they had the Ukraine flag in it. And all you have to do is insert yourself into that, and suddenly you've got millions of free articles, people saying Elon Musk daily, people saying Starlink daily. It just brings in a whole bunch of awareness to it.
But listen, there's also a benefit as a company. So obviously, certain countries have closer relationships and ties with some countries than others in this conflict. So he's an American businessman. Obviously, the logical decision to sell your product to is Ukraine. But if he sold it to Russia, who would say anything? Who would get mad at him? Who would cause a fuss? Do you have some ideas there?
Well, there's a lot of people who hate Elon. Online.
No, not Elon. I'm talking about the issue. Who would?
At that moment, people would get mad. I think now people wouldn't.
No. I'm not talking about people. I'm saying, would there be any pushback with his willingness to sell Starlink satellites?
That's what I'm saying.
To Russia.
No, he would not. Nobody would care in a big way if he was selling access to Starlinks to Russia. Now, in the first 2-3 months of the war,
you don't think the United States government would be?
No,
they wouldn't. Why not?
Because they'd probably have access to it, and then they would be siphoning off Russian information accidentally, and they would say, "Whoops, we didn't know that feature was in those satellites, and thank you for all your information."
Accidentally on purpose?
Yeah, accidentally on purpose.
Right, well,
oops.
That's an angle.
Oops.
So, I mean, but also, if you look at... So just tying this back into the,
This goes all the way back to what Prof G said. Tie it in. Young student comes to him. I got a job. You're saying work for Starlink. Is that what you're saying? What are you saying?
I mean,
tie it all together.
I mean, it just goes back to the salesmanship. To be a
selling a vision.
Yeah.
And then Starlink was a vision someone sold.
So prior to and that's the connection. But prior to the conflict, he had to sell the value to people, but the cost is so high. There's not going to be a lot of new entrants into that market. I mean, the product sold itself in the Ukraine conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So all he has to do is go over there and provide the capabilities. The product will sell itself. So this just goes back to what you're saying about timing, events, and also what was said. Well, you mentioned timing. Timing is very important when it comes to selling a product. So there's a right time to sell it. Sometimes it's in moments when those periods of time, those windows exist. You need to take advantage of that. But he also recognizes when you need to do that. So you try to sell it to farmers who don't have a high margin to work with. They're not gonna spend money on that. They're gonna spend money on feed and taking care of their herd. So they're not gonna buy Starlink.
So to wrap it all up, tell the kid, don't sell your idea to a farmer who doesn't have a big budget.
You need to go where the market is.
Genius. Okay, we're gonna.
Wait. You do have to be risk aggressive. But you have to be risk aggressive in the sense that you can sell your product to the right market at the right time.
Don't be unprepared and risk.
If you're prepared, if you have a product that works in a market that doesn't want it, you're working overtime for no reason. If you have a product that works and you're selling it to a market that has a high demand, you don't need to sell the product. You just need to tell them you have it, and they'll buy it in droves.
Absolutely.
London is a melting pot for creativity. You've got, sitting in one city, you've got people who are phenomenal at media, finance, technology, entertainment, politics, defense, like all of this. Like if you take the best of LA and Washington and New York and Miami and kind of start moving it into one city, you get elements of that in London. It's a very diverse city from that point of view, and it creates an entrepreneurial melting pot. The issue is taxes. Nobody wants to pay 60% of their income in taxes. And as soon as you hit, in the US, you don't hit the top tax rate until you are 6 times the average wage. Here in the UK, it's 2.5 times. So as soon as you're 2.5 times the average wage, you're in real trouble. There are so many people in the UK who deliberately hold their income at £50,000 because after £50,000 you get taxed 40% of your income. So people just give up and they say, I'm not going. I know some really smart, really talented people who could be earning a lot more, and they refuse to pay the 40% rate. So they keep everything small because they don't want to go from 20 to 40% at the 50 grand rate, which is crazy. And I've employed people who have said, can I have a day off a week rather than going over that threshold?
Thank you, Mr. Priestley. What you think about that? The harm that the tax brackets, people avoiding going into them, how it affects the economy, how it affects the psychology of workers.
So I think it's something that only an individual who understands taxes would employ as a strategy to avoid being taxed more. I understand it. I definitely agree with it. If there's no incentive to move up into the next tax bracket, why would you want to? Especially if you know. But even if you don't know when you get into that tax bracket, say you take a job that makes over £50,000 a year in the UK, and you're seeing a little less than half of your pay going towards taxes.
So let's say you're making 50K.
Over 50K.
You're making 50K.
No.
Would you listen to me for a second?
No.
You're making 50K. Your boss offers you, what, you're doing such a great job. I'm going to give you 10 more K. But of course, the government's going to take 6 of that. So you're actually getting 4.
No. As soon as you move up that 10K, in your example, they're not just taking 6 of that 10K. They're taking 6 of 60K. They're taking 40 to 50% of that 60K. That's different than taking 60% of 10K. They're taking all of your salary.
Out of the whole chunk.
The whole chunk.
Not out of what goes beyond.
Yes.
50.
And most people...
Shoot, I definitely don't want no raise.
I know. I'm telling you. And it's no different than in this country, really, too. Now, it depends. But I would say the tax law hasn't really changed too much. But the tax law can change. But you really have to pay attention to it. Like, you have to pay close attention to what the IRS is releasing for the tax brackets per year. But honestly, there's like minute changes. There's like 1% here, maybe 1% there, if you're making over a certain amount of money. But generally, it doesn't change. So, but if you're in the UK and you experience that alteration in your pay by just moving up beyond that cap of 50,000 pounds a year, I mean, you probably, I would expect that you've experienced the pain. And then you get another job, or you beg for less pay, which I think is just absurd. just thinking of it.
That is hilarious.
Hey, boss,
please pay me less.
Pay me less.
I swear.
I don't want any more. I mean, who does that? Apparently, smart people. So you've either experienced that, or you're like, okay, I only want to make X. So and the reason you know this is because of your social network. Or you just read up on it. I mean, that's a possibility too. There are documents that exist in the public record that you can reference, and you can kind of piece together that it doesn't make much sense to make more money. So, yeah, taxing does have an impact on income. It disincentivizes people from starting their own business, especially if businesses are taxed the exact same way.
And what about just, let's say you have the talent, you could improve in a company, but you have to say to yourself, yeah, but it ain't worth it.
That's right. Yeah.
So the economy loses that increase in talent.
Yeah. So
distributed over all the companies that are in the economy.
Yeah. So it undermines a merit-based system. And a merit-based system, I think a merit-based system is more aspirational as an idea for an economic system that rewards talent, drive, ambition, determination, and new ideas. I think it's really just aspirational. You want to reward those people, but what ends up happening in that merit-based system is that the reward for your success is more work. And is that a reward? I mean, I'm sure there's different takes on this.
I would say for most, you have to think of it from the general. I don't think most people... There is a type of person who will take on more and more and more and more and more. That's what gives their life meaning and everything, right?
Yeah, but I think
there's other people who their family gives them meaning. Their hobbies give them meaning.
Yeah.
And they're going to work for the paycheck. And then that's when the math goes all which way.
But if we're talking about Europe... UK stands apart from the European Union now because of Brexit, but if we're talking about the UK, do people live to work or do they work to live? What is the attitude there? And
I think it's definitely not like us. I think
it's they know they have to work to live. Yeah. But here in America, I think the attitude is generally you live for work, but there's been a subtle shift where a plurality of society, they want to move towards a balance between live to work and work to live, and they want to even out the scales.
I think that's the thing we've talked about before with the effect COVID had on people. Where they suddenly had this break from waking epiphany. Up at 5 a.m.
Wow, my job sucks.
Getting the kids ready for school, and then driving in shitty traffic, and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
And then to suddenly all that stop and go, wait a minute, there's life
beyond
outside of this schedule.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a once in a lifetime phenomenon. For me, I've had perhaps the benefit of having bad experiences that have led me to these epiphanies where I'm just like, maybe it was a benefit things trended the way they did, because now I can reassess what matters to me and what I want to do and where I want to go in my life, because I'm only going to be here for maybe if I'm lucky 80 good years, and half of that you spend working. I mean, 3/4 of that you spend working. And some people don't get to that stage of life where they are able to really identify what matters to them. Most people, they just have to live through their work, and they sacrifice the things that they want to do, either for their family, loved ones, obligations they have, responsibilities, because if you're not working, you can't survive. I think generally most people don't want a handout. They don't want to be handhandling on the corner. They want to work, but it's difficult to do that when
it's everything in balance.
We
wouldn't have the things that we have, like being able to make this podcast,
Yeah,
without
that's true.
somebody out there
Yeah.
going to work every day and creating the things that I purchase,
Yeah.
right? So you have to sacrifice something to get something,
Yeah,
right?
we
but
need
it's
it.
but
But
it's finding a balance in that.
Yeah, and the people who came before us that built this economy that has allowed us to pursue this interest, I don't think it's wrong to pay homage to those people, to say, like, look, the people who were in this economy before us, who built this economy and the systems that exist for us to be able to pursue this interest, we need to tip our hats to them. The people who built America, right? I mean,
What I'm saying is, you can't go into it thinking like, I just deserve all this stuff. You have to also sacrifice.
yeah.
You just don't get it for free.
No. Then I think that was an interesting point in that clip, because the professor, Prof.
You're talking about Galloway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He talks about something that isn't often talked about in general in discourse, which is societal attitudes, cultural attitudes. And I think we've identified that in the UK. The attitude is you don't live for work. So they want to enjoy life. People want to make more money if they can, to improve the quality of their life. Have the things that they want. The bigger home, the nicer car, the luxuries of life, the benefits of first world, the comforts of first world living, right? But there's also an impact on the economy, which is stagnation, which is, we mentioned that briefly. So what does that do if people are not incentivized to move up? Or at least not disincentivized. I think that's the key. It's like, there's always an incentive to move up, right? There's more experience, title, power, authority, if you care about those things. A seat at the table, if you care about those things. And I think generally, once you've reached a certain part of your career, people do want to move on. But if you're disincentivized from doing that because you're being punished for making more money, and where is that money going? Is it going towards, your future retirement? Because some people may be like, okay, I can sacrifice more pay if it means I'm going to have just as much in my retirement, and I'm going to retire on schedule. So there's trade-offs there, but I think in the UK, I don't think they're incentivized. I think they're disincentivized to move up, especially if you know these things. Because
in my opinion, it's two things. One, it's a feeling, right? You feel like somebody is stealing from you.
Yeah.
When someone takes 40% of your paycheck and you see
that,
you see your full paycheck and then you see the negatives, you feel in your gut that these people are stealing
but
from
I
you.
think that's the American perspective. In the UK, generally, that would be a very limited point of view.
No, but I get it. Listen, there
But I
are
agree with-
services
I-
like
I'm not disagreeing with
police,
you.
you need it, in the firefighters, you need it, you need roads, all
Emergency
that stuff, right?
services, things like that.
But there is a point where, even though you know you need those services, when you actually look at your pay stub and you see the negatives, you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Now, hold on. But so that's the one aspect of it, is the feeling that you get, right? Second is, it's not like you look towards the government and you see someone who has a balanced checkbook, who's spending responsibly, who is taking care of important things in the economy while building a savings, right? What you see is excessive spending on shit you don't care about, on stuff you don't like.
You're talking about, this is an American perspective.
I know.
In Europe, you can see where all your money's going. They don't hide any of it. They'll say it goes towards military, it goes towards social programs, it goes towards, an example would be in that Michael Moore documentary where he goes to France. I forget the name of the documentary, but he goes to France, and the kids that are they're having lunch, and their lunch is like 5-star meals. Okay, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, you and I, we experience school lunches, you know.
Microwave,
cheeseburgers, pizza that's like cold, French fries that aren't warm, even under the heating light. Some of the lights wouldn't be working.
I've had many a cold chicken sandwich in the middle. Definitely
chocolate milk, whole milk. I mean, those were your options. But I mean, these kids, they can choose between like 3 different entrees. Okay, fresh food, fresh milk, cooked by like a 5-star chef. I mean, maybe not a 5-star chef, but he has professional training. I mean, so I'm just saying, in comparison, there's certain cultural differences.
Well, yeah, I would agree that they're spending more on taxes, but they're getting more value
out of their
people.
social services.
Yeah. Where here we spend more in taxes, but it just seems to bomb other countries.
Yeah. The big thing is that we don't know where these we know Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, but we also don't know how much of that goes towards military spending because it's obscure and it's hidden from the public, and
it's not like our kids are coming out brilliant.
Yeah. And well,
So where's this money going?
There's
really
the difference, I would say, is like there's a difference in population too. Attitudes and societal norms differ vastly, I think, in Europe than they do in the United States. And the cost of things are going to differ vastly too. The size of those countries, like UK, is small geographically by comparison. So, you know, and most people are closer to their government. You know, if you live in California or Washington State or New Mexico, Washington, D.C. might as well be on the other side of the earth. So their government that they know is their local and state government.
I mean, that's true. People don't realize that. Like, you know, if you ever seen those maps where they put America over other countries and you see how big it is compared to the UK, compared to Australia, stuff like that.
It's gonna.
You can see that, you know, like many countries in Europe fit in America.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have a different dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the population's different as well. I think like France has a population of like 60 million, and that includes immigrant influx. Whereas the United States is like 350 million now, I think, from the last census.
Something like that.
Which is pretty significant, but over a wide swath of territory. Now let's take it to the Far East. Japan has, and this is kind of staggering to think about, but they have a population that is like 1/3 the population of the United States as an island nation. And let's examine their economy in comparison to the United States and the UK. They've experienced stagnation, significant stagnation. And why? Well, because the government subsidizes a lot of these businesses that fail to be competitive, and so they don't want people to not have jobs. So they subsidize businesses from going under by keeping their workers employed. And the problem is because the markets are so small. All these companies, they know each other. Like they have tea together. So if the market for let's say, as an example, let's say a knife making company, which they make like chef knives and stuff like that. If the competition is between you and 3 other companies that make knives, I mean, they're gonna you know, excuse the pun, but they're gonna slice up the market amongst themselves. One company may have a significant segment of the market, and then they want to purchase those other companies, but they're disincentivized from doing that because the government's saying, well, if you do that, you know, what's going to happen to the jobs that exist in this particular area? Are you going to centralize those jobs in the northern part of Japan, or are you going to keep those smaller companies operating in other parts of Japan, which provides jobs and stimulates the local economy in those provinces? And what ends up happening is, at least for the longest time, the economy of Japan was heavily subsidized because of cultural stigma. So the cultural stigma element disincentivized the government from removing those subsidies, which led to overall stagnation in the economy, in their national economy. So their GDP was steady for a long period of time, but there's also this gradual erosion of the economy because they're not being competitive. Now that's changed a lot because of geopolitical issues, but there's macro impacts from societal attitudes in regards to the local and national economy. But they're also a very conservative nation too, by and large, which I think it differs vastly from the UK and the US in that the UK, I would say it's more socially conscious, more left-leaning. And in the US, I'd say it's a mixed bag depending on which political parties in the executive branch.
I don't know. I feel like right now both parties aren't happy with how things go. I mean, obviously this is a new administration, but I'm saying in the past.
No, I think I think the left in the United States, the left typically, they like the social programs, right? And some of them are good to keep. Others, you can probably leave that up to the states and localities to decide if they want to fund. But I think the left likes it, likes certain aspects of a left or a Democrat president in the White House, and the right likes it for other reasons. But I really feel like it's the working class, which I'll call them independents, because I don't think the working class can be one side or the other.
Why not?
Because at times there's going to be a party that is able to sway them into voting for a particular candidate because they're going to provide some monetary benefit, some tangible reward for voting for left or right. And this election cycle, I think that the working class, they swung heavily for the right, and I would hazard a guess it had a lot to do with societal attitudes in society, attitudes about the economy, and that made, I think, a big impact on the results of the election. Now, how much? I don't know. Societal issues in comparison to economic issues, I think they rate up there side by side, but I think economic issues rate higher. I feel like even the working class in America, they've likely been disincentivized to start their own business, because why? Who starts the businesses in small businesses in America? Who starts businesses in America? I mean, typically it's working class. It's somebody who sees a gap. If they're working at a company, they see a service that isn't being met, they break off and they form their own service, or there's those who form their own company.
Well, I feel like whenever you start
do something
business,
better,
it's going to be small, so it would be somebody.
Not only. What about Lucid? Lucid. I mean, these are a lot of people who worked.
Well, in the car company compared to what, right? So yes, they are small compared to Toyota and Honda, who are making millions and millions of cars.
They have their own warehouses that they're manufacturing their cars, and I don't think that's small.
It's small for what they're moving into.
No, I think there's still. How many employees do they have?
I don't know. I haven't looked at their. I just remember them making the crossover.
Yeah, the Lucid. I forget what it's called.
Gravity, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people they employ.
So it looks like over 6,000. So when you get into
that's a larger company.
Yeah. The ranges for like the companies they go from medium to small, or small is like 5 to 10. Medium, small to medium is like 10 to 50, and then medium to large, 50 to 100. Or medium size, 50 to 100. And then above that, 100, medium to large, it's like 100 to like 1,000. So the numbers, they jump wildly.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know. I don't know
But Lucid, they saw because a lot of these people used to work for Tesla. They saw what Tesla was doing, and they think, oh, they can do it better, so they start their own company. I mean, and that remains to be seen. I think there's possibility there that they can create electric cars better. But who starts the small businesses? It's people who see they have to be entrepreneurial. They have to see that there's a need that's not being met. They decide that they're going to provide that need.
When I think small business, I think of like your local comic shop, your local non-chain pizzeria.
Falls into that category.
Your local
Like a franchise pizzeria or just like a mom and pop?
Yeah, mom and pop.
That's small
pizzeria.
Yeah.
Your landscaping business that just does like this zip code. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. But when I think of a small business, I think of stuff like that.
Well,
where you definitely have under 100 employees.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still starting these businesses. Now, in UK, is there who's starting these small businesses? Or, I mean, in France, certainly what you're talking about applies because there's a lot of small businesses, a lot of vendors, a lot of merchants who sell products directly to the public. And in some cases, it is what you said. It's you start off with an idea, you start small, and then you build large. You go from small to medium, small to medium, medium to small, medium to large, and then you move eventually into
and that's another
medium
thing
large.
You could factor in. So I'm sure that the tax brackets have to go with your business. So if your business makes a certain amount of money, it's going to go into a larger tax bracket. So maybe that business you would push into a higher level. No, you don't.
Yeah.
So these are things that you don't see because they're not happening, right?
Yeah.
So it's like an invisible metric, you know?
So I mean, going back to that point that was mentioned in that clip is the disincentivization of growing your business. Now, I think in America, a huge disadvantage to starting your own business or expanding your company is regulation. Now, obviously this depends. And some regulation is needed. An example would be like the FDA regulating the certain types of food that get into the supply chain, ensuring that, mad cow disease doesn't spread, listeria I think that stuff is good. This is stuff we put into our body. And then obviously there's contentious issues there as well. But I'm just saying that generally when it with regulation, some regulation is good, some regulation is bad, but it disincentivizes businesses, and they can lose value in the stock market. They can lose opportunities to expand because they're just disincentivized from expanding because of regulation. It just doesn't make business sense for them to do it. And obviously the profit motive, whether for good or bad, is a motive for expansion. It's not always altruistic reasoning. Businesses exist to make money, and this is not a very popular thing to say with this generation.
Well, there's a lot of naive people out there who
they think that
businesses are open to serve the public or some stupid shit.
Which is true. They do serve the public,
but the person's
it's
doing
not
it
altruistic
to make
this
money.
Is not altruism.
Yeah.
They're doing it to make money.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that this touches on how much money is enough money, right? And I think that's where you kind of swing back over to Europe, and you kind of see whether or not they've struck a balance remains to be seen. And people are going to disagree whether they've struck a balance or whether they should.
Oh yeah. There's going to be wild opinions.
Absolutely. And I think it's...
And whatever you think is enough money, someone's going to say it's too little, someone's going to say it's too much.
Yeah.
So nobody will ever agree on it. It basically comes down to a gut feeling of what you have.
And this goes back to the attitudes, In Japan, they are a savings culture, right? In America,
we are a credit culture.
I think, I've seen numbers that, they might be dated now, but most Americans carry at least $20,000 in debt. I think the number's gone up to 25 to 30.
It's gotta be more.
Yeah, certain demographics that save more than others.
All right, let's wrap it up. Closing opinion on this.
I think attitudes have an impact on the economy. If a group of people believe that if they're okay with most of their taxes going towards social programs, then that's,
And they experience them in their daily lives as being quality.
Yeah, it has to be something that improves. So in Nordic countries, in Scandinavian countries, a lot of their taxes, they go towards paying for social programs. But the population is so small, and they have the benefit of having natural resources that they just sell billions and trillions of dollars of profit. So they don't even really use ICE cars.
I know there's a
Combustible
lot
engines.
of bike riding that goes along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're healthier. They engage in a certain element of autarky, which is basically they utilize the resources they have within their country to provide everything they need within their country. And I think this is going to become more prevalent, especially in regards to like chip manufacturing, oil development, energy development, nuclear development, space development, satellite development. So in any event, the culture has an impact on what society is willing to accept. And it's an interesting conversation. I think that in the UK example, I don't know, like if I was them, I definitely wouldn't want to move up and get more responsibility for basically the same pay.
So for the wrapping up is for your own mental health, stay below the threshold, otherwise you'll become an angry, depressed person.
Yeah,
I
protect
agree.
your pocketbook.
Yeah.